Hello friends, in this video we are going to see how to create multi-step form in Laravel with Livewire. This will help you while you have a long registration form of your Laravel project where you can divide your form into sections. We will learn how you can validate each current step form elements. Let's get started. Create new database and rename to multi-step form. Then use this database name to .env file at db_database variable. Open terminal and run php artisan make :model student-m command. That command created the student model file. And also we have the students table migration file. Let's add more columns on the students table. This table will have first name, last name, gender, age, email, phone, description, country, city, frameworks and CV columns. Let's define fiable columns array in the student model. After that, go to terminal and run php artisan migrate command. As you can see, we have now tables inside multi-step form database. And also students table had been generated. Go to web.php file and add new root view for registration form. Let's create this view blade file. We will use Bootstrap for this layout. Open new terminal and enter php artisan serve command for running our project. As you can see, we are on Laravel 8. Let's access our register root. As you can see, we have now a register page. Before continue, we have to install Livewire in our project. Just go to Google and search for Laravel Livewire. Click on first link. This is an official website for Laravel Livewire. Click on Docs link. On this page, you will see how you can use Livewire in your Laravel application. To install Livewire in our project, we will use this command. Go to terminal and run composer require livewire/livewire command. Then wait for installation. Once Livewire downloaded and installed into project, we have to include Livewire CSS and JavaScript files on register page. Copy this Livewire styles and paste inside head tag. Livewire scripts and paste inside body tag before closing body tag. Now, Livewire installed into our project. Let's continue design register layout using Bootstrap classes. Let's create Livewire component that will hold register form here. Just go to terminal and run php artisan make :livewire multi-step form command. As you can see, our Livewire component have been created. And also Livewire class file have been created. Our form will be inside here. Let's add this text for testing. To include Livewire component on Blade, we can use this Livewire directive. Just make sure that this text is the same to this component name. As you can see, we have now this message from Livewire component. Let's add register form here. Just go to our Livewire component and replace this with form. Let's add card that will have form inputs for first step. This section will contains input fields for personal details. Now, we have our first step elements card where user will fill first name, last name, age, description and select gender. Let's add section 2. This section will contains inputs for address and contacts where user will fill email address, phone, city and select her or his country of residence. Let's add section 3. Now, we have third elements card where user will choose frameworks he or she knows. Let's add section 4. Now, we have fourth elements card where user will attach CV then agree with terms and condition. Let's add action buttons below this card. This back button must have type attribute of button. This next button must have type attribute of button. And this submit button must have type attribute of submit. Now, we have these action buttons here. So, our register form will have these steps. Let's add wire models to every element of this form. Then after, add error spans under each element where validation errors will be displayed. Back on multi-step form Livewire component class file. This line is important if you have input file element for uploading file. Then import student model here like this. Now, it's time to define form properties. We have defined our form properties inside multi-step form Livewire component class. We have 4 steps in total, but our current step is equal to 1 by default. Inside this mount function, let's set this current step equal to 1. Now, it's time to split our form into steps according to the current step value. This first step card will visible if the current step is equal to 1. This back button will be visible if the current step is equal to 2 or equal to 3 or equal to 4. This next button will be visible if the current step is equal to 1 or equal to 2 or equal to 3. And this submit button will be visible only if current step is equal to 4. Let's test. As you can see, we have only next button for the first step stage. Let's add wire click function to the back and next buttons. This button will decrease step value, and this will increase step value. Let's define these two methods inside multi-step form Livewire component class. Inside this function, increment current step value by 1. But if the current step value tends to excess to the total steps, this value will be equal to the total steps value. Inside this function, decrement current step value by 1. But if the current step value tends to be less than 1, this value will be equal to 1. Let's test. Now, we are on the first step stage. If we click on the next button, we can go to the second step form stage. And if we click on back button, we can back to the first form stage. Let's click on next button again. As you can see, we are on the second step form stage. If we click on this next button, we are now on the third step form stage. If we click on next button, we are now on the last step form stage. This will be the find step where user will attach her or his CV and agree terms and conditions. If we click on back button, we back on third step stage. Now, if we are on final step form stage and try to click on submit button, we have this error message that show us that the register method is not defined in multi-step form Livewire component class. Let's continue. Let's add register method here. Now, it's time to validate our form. Let's add this validate data function where we will validate inputs from step 1, step 2 and step 3. If current step is equal to 1, first name must be required and string. Last name must be required and string. Gender must be required. Age must be required and digits. If we click on next button without filling required fields, we have the validation errors displayed under each element and we don't going to the next step because of validation. This means that we must fill all required fields in order to go to the next step of form. But if we filled all required fields and try to click on next button, we can go to the second step. And we can going back to modify previous details. Now, if we are on second step and try to go to the next step by clicking on this next button, we have the following validation errors. This means that we must fill all required fields in order to go to the next step of form. But you can go back to the previous step. And if you make a mistake on previous, this will not allows you to go to the next step until you correct that mistake. Now, let's try to fill all required fields on this second step. If we filled all required fields on second step and try to go to the next step by clicking on this next button, this will redirect to the third step of registration. In this step, user can select at least 2 frameworks, no more than 3 frameworks of her or his choice. If we click on back button, we can back to the previous step, which is second step, and we can also back to the first stage. As you can see, all filled fields are still having their values we entered. Let's go to the third step. If we are on third step and try to click next button without check at least one of framework, we have this validation error that show us the frameworks are required. If we select one framework and try to click next button, validation error will tell us that we must select at least 2 items. But if we check 2 frameworks and click on next button, this will bring us to the step 4 of our registration form. If we go back to the previous step and try to check more than 3 frameworks and try to click on next button, this will give an error that show us that we must not have more than 3 frameworks checked instead of going to the next step. But if we uncheck one of framework and try to click on next button, this will bring us to the next step, which is 4. Now it's time to validate these 2 elements when we click on this submit button. Back to multi-step form class and update this register method. First, reset error bags. If current step is equal to 4, CV must be required, with one of these extensions. Terms must be accepted. Let's add this die dump for testing if validation is successfully done. Let's test. If we try to submit without attaching CV and accept terms and conditions, we have these validation errors. If we attach image file and try to submit form, we have the following error that show us that the attached file has wrong extension. But if we choose doc file and try to submit a form, we don't have any CV validation error. If we check this checkbox to agree with terms and condition and try to submit form, we have this message that show us that we can submit a form. Let's continue. Here, we can upload CV file first. If CV uploaded, we have to insert student data into database. Redirect registered student to the thank you page instead of going back to the initial stage of form. Go to web.php file and add new root view for registration success page. Let's create this view blade file. Now, comment these two lines. Then redirect this user to the thank you page after registration done. Then pass this data into this route. Let's test. Now, register another student. As you can see, when student registered successfully, he or she redirected to this thank you page. By looking into database, we see that student has been inserted into students table. Friends, this how you can make multi-step form wizard in Laravel with Livewire. If you are new on this channel, please subscribe in order to be notified when new video is uploaded on this channel. Thanks for watching this video.